If you clicked on this video, it wasn't accidental. It wasn't an algorithm, curiosity, or boredom that led you here. It was quantum observation. Your consciousness noticed this title, this image, this exact moment. And through that observation, you collapsed a probability wave that has been waiting since before you were born to deliver precisely what you are receiving now. The most powerful quantum observation in human history is not taking place in laboratories or universities. It is happening right now, through you, as you read these words. And if you ignore this, if you dismiss what is being transmitted, if you allow this moment to pass as just another video, you will miss the one realization that changes everything about how reality responds to you. How manifestation moves through you. How consciousness itself uses you to observe reality into forms that serve your highest evolution. This is not exaggeration. This is not clickbait designed to capture attention. This is quantum mechanics meeting mystical truth at the exact point where your consciousness has reached the frequency required to grasp what scientists have demonstrated but cannot fully explain, and what mystics have always known but could not prove until now. It is the operating system of existence itself. And you are not just an observer. You are the observer. The one consciousness observing itself through infinite perspectives. And this particular perspective, called you, is about to recognize its ability to determine reality through the simple act of observing. Can you feel it? That electric sensation moving through your awareness right now. That is not excitement. It is recognition. Your consciousness remembering what it forgot. Your quantum nature activating through the frequency encoded in these words. Every syllable you are reading is carrying information that is installing itself into your field right now. Recalibrating how you observe. Upgrading your relationship with reality from passive perceiver to active creator through the most fundamental force in the universe. Conscious observation. You are not learning something new. You are remembering something ancient. Something hidden in plain sight because it is so obvious, so constant, so fundamental that you looked straight through it while searching for complex techniques and secret knowledge. Quantum physics has proven beyond any doubt that observation affects reality. The double-slit experiment shows particles behaving as waves until observed, then instantly becoming particles not influenced by observation, but changed by observation, created by observation. Particles do not exist in a definite form until consciousness observes them. They exist in superposition, all possibilities at once, until the moment of observation collapses them into a single specific reality. And here is what will shatter everything you think you know. You are doing this constantly. Every moment, every breath, every thought, you are observing reality into specific form through the quantum mechanics of consciousness, determining which probability waves collapse into your experienced reality. But the revelation that changes everything is this. Most people are observing unconsciously, automatically, according to conditioning, habits, and belief systems they absorbed without choosing. They are collapsing probability waves that match their past, confirm their limitations, and recreate the same reality again and again, because they observe in the same way again and again. They believe they are passive observers watching reality unfold. In truth, they are active creators observing reality into being, but doing it unconsciously, creating the illusion that reality is happening to them rather than through them. The most powerful quantum observation is not seeing something new. It is recognizing that you have been the observer all along. Determining what appears through how you observe. Creating your reality through the specific way your consciousness interfaces with the quantum field in every single moment. Ancient mystics encoded this truth in every tradition. As you believe, so shall it be, not a moral lesson. Quantum mechanics. Your beliefs determine how you observe. And how you observe determines what collapses from superposition into experience. You are what you seek, not poetic metaphor, but scientific fact. The consciousness that seeks is the same consciousness that creates through the act of observing what it seeks. The kingdom of heaven is within you, not a religious promise, but recognition that the power to observe reality into any form exists within your consciousness right now. Always has. Always will. You are not trying to gain observational power. You are realizing that you have been using it unconsciously, and that you can begin using it consciously. Right now, as you engage with this transmission, your observation is shifting. You can feel it, can't you? The way you are looking at these words. The way you are perceiving this moment. The way you are aware of being aware. That shift in observation, that is the activation. That is consciousness recognizing its own power. That is the most powerful quantum observation taking place. You observing yourself as the observer, creating an infinite recursive loop where consciousness observes itself observing itself, amplifying observational power beyond anything unconscious observation can access. You are not reading about quantum observation. You are observing quantumly right now. And the recognition of yourself as observer is the key that unlocks everything. Take a breath, a deep one. And as you breathe, observe yourself breathing. Not thinking about the breath, observing it. Feel the observation itself. The awareness that is aware. The consciousness that is conscious. That is quantum observation at its purest. That is you interfacing directly with the quantum field, not through thinking or doing, but through pure observing. And in that observation, in that moment of being aware that you are aware, reality is responding. Probability waves are collapsing. The quantum field is organizing itself around your observation, not around what you are observing, but around the fact that you are observing consciously rather than unconsciously. That is the power. That is the secret. That is the most powerful quantum observation in history, occurring right now through you, as you, because of you. You are about to discover why observation is more powerful than manifestation techniques. Why awareness transforms more deeply than effort. Why consciousness recognizing itself as observer creates reality shifts that effort-based approaches can never reach. Because the moment you truly understand that you are the observer determining reality through how you observe, everything changes. Not eventually, immediately. Through quantum mechanics that have been operating all along, but which unconscious observation prevented you from recognizing and using deliberately. Before we activate the full power of conscious quantum observation and show you how to observe reality into forms that serve you, you need to understand how observation became unconscious in the first place. Because observation is not naturally unconscious. Babies observe everything freshly, directly, without filters. Animals observe their environment with complete presence. Only humans develop unconscious observation, automatic, filtered, conditioned observation that creates the illusion that reality is fixed and that you are merely perceiving it rather than observing it into being through the specific way your consciousness interfaces with the quantum field. The first layer of unconscious observation is survival conditioning. Your brain evolved to recognize patterns and predict outcomes in order to keep you safe. This was useful for avoiding predators or dangerous situations. But it became a problem when pattern recognition began filtering what you observe. Instead of seeing what is actually present, you see what you expect based on past patterns. Instead of observing reality freshly, you observe it through memory filters that make the present look like the past. This creates a self-fulfilling loop. You observe expecting a certain reality based on the past, which causes you to collapse probability waves that match the past, which confirms that reality has not changed, which reinforces the observation filter and perpetuates the cycle. You are not observing reality. You are observing your expectations about reality, and the quantum field responds by delivering what you expect, because expectation itself is a form of observation. The second layer is cultural conditioning around observation. You were taught that observation is passive. You observe what is there. You do not change what is there by observing it. You were taught that seeing is believing, that reality is fixed, and observation merely perceives it. You were taught that changing reality requires action, effort, doing something to make things different. No one taught you that observation itself is a creative act. That seeing is not only believing, but actively creating what you see through the quantum mechanics of consciousness, collapsing probability waves. This conditioning rendered observation unconscious, because if observation is merely passive perception, there is no reason to be aware of how you are observing. You are simply looking at what is there. Except quantum physics proves this is completely reversed. What is there is determined by how you observe. And if you observe unconsciously, you create unconsciously, which makes reality appear as though it is happening to you instead of being created through you. The third layer is emotional conditioning that forms observation filters. Every trauma, every painful experience, every moment of rejection or failure creates perceptual filters designed to protect you from similar pain. If you were rejected in a certain situation, you develop a filter that observes for signs of rejection in similar situations. If you experienced failure in a particular area, you develop a filter that looks for evidence that you will fail again. These filters are not protecting you. They are generating what they are looking for. When you observe while looking for rejection, you collapse probability waves where rejection exists. When you observe expecting failure, you collapse probability waves where failure occurs. The filter creates what it filters for through the quantum mechanics of observation, determining reality. You believe you are noticing patterns, but you are actually creating patterns through the specific way you observe. The fourth layer is the addiction to automatic observation. Conscious observation requires presence, attention, and energy. Unconscious observation is effortless, automatic, and requires no awareness. Your system naturally defaults to unconscious observation because it is easier. But easier is not better when easier means creating reality unconsciously according to past patterns, instead of consciously according to present choice. The addiction to automatic observation is an addiction to familiar reality. Change requires conscious observation. Transformation requires aware observation. Evolution requires deliberate observation. And all of that requires effort, which the system resists because it is designed for efficiency. Conscious observation is less efficient than automatic observation, even though it is infinitely more powerful. The fifth layer is the belief that observation does not matter, that you are just one person, that your observation does not affect reality, that the world is what it is regardless of how you observe it. This belief is what keeps observation unconscious. Because if observation does not matter, there is no reason to be aware of it. But quantum physics completely dismantles this belief. Reality is not fixed until observed. Your observation does not merely perceive reality. It determines reality by collapsing specific probability, waves from infinite possibilities. One person's conscious observation is more powerful than millions of unconscious observations, because conscious observation interfaces directly with the quantum field. Unconscious observation only repeats past patterns. You are not just one person whose observation does not matter. You are consciousness itself, observing reality into being. And whether you do that consciously or unconsciously determines whether you experience reality as a prison of repetition or as an open field of possibility, waiting for your observation to collapse it into whatever serves your evolution. But here is what matters most. None of this is your fault. You were never taught the quantum mechanics of observation. You were taught that observation is passive perception. You were never shown that you are collapsing probability waves with every glance, every thought, every moment of attention. You were conditioned to observe unconsciously through filters inherited from culture, family, and past experience. No one told you that observation is the most powerful force in the universe. That consciousness observing is what creates reality. That you are not a victim of circumstances, but the creator of circumstances through how you observe. Unconscious observation is not failure. It is simply what happens when no one teaches you that observation creates reality through quantum mechanics that respond far more strongly to conscious attention than to unconscious repetition. Think about moments when your observation was truly conscious. Times when you were completely present, fully aware, observing without filters or expectations. Perhaps in nature. Perhaps in a crisis that demanded total attention. Perhaps during a peak experience where you were so absorbed that you forgot yourself and became pure observation. In those moments, reality likely felt more alive, more responsive, more fluid. Synchronicities probably increased. Things that seemed impossible may have occurred. That was not coincidence. That was conscious observation interfacing directly with the quantum field, collapsing probability waves through aware attention rather than through unconscious repetition of patterns. Those moments were not rare exceptions. They were instances where you accidentally accessed a power that is always available when observation is conscious, instead of automatic. What is happening now is the deliberate activation of that same state, turning what once appeared accidental into something intentional, making conscious observation your baseline rather than a fleeting exception. Not by adding anything new or learning something complex, but by recognizing that observation itself is the creative force. That you are observing reality into being at every moment. And that the only difference between unconscious observation that recreates the past and conscious observation that opens new possibilities is awareness. Awareness that you are observing. Awareness of how you are observing. Awareness of what you are observing for. That is the entire shift. The shift that transforms observation from passive perception into active creation through quantum mechanics that have been waiting for you to observe consciously rather than automatically. There are specific signals that indicate your observation is moving from unconscious to conscious, from automatic to aware, from pattern repetition to reality creation. These are not achievements to chase or states to force. They are natural effects that arise when consciousness begins observing itself, observing. When awareness becomes aware of being aware. When you recognize that you are not merely seeing reality, but determining reality through the precise way you interface with the quantum field in each moment of observation. The first signal is reality responding differently to your attention. You observe something with full conscious awareness, and it changes. Not symbolically. Literally. Situations shift. People respond differently. Circumstances reorganize. This occurs because conscious observation interfaces directly with the quantum field, collapsing probability waves in real time based on the quality of observation rather than habitual patterns. When observation is unconscious, reality appears fixed. When observation becomes conscious, reality reveals its quantum nature fluid, responsive, malleable to aware attention. The second signal is an increase in synchronicity. As observation becomes conscious, as you are aware of observing instead of lost in automatic perception, synchronicities multiply. The right person appears. The needed information arrives. the appropriate opportunity opens. This is not coincidence or the universe conspiring. It is quantum mechanics responding to conscious observation that is interfacing directly with the field rather than through conditioned filters. Synchronicity is a natural function of conscious observation, because conscious observation collapses probability waves that serve you rather than waves that merely repeat the past. The third signal is a shift in how you remember the past. You recall events differently than before, not because memory is unreliable, but because conscious observation in the present can influence how the past is held. Quantum physics shows that present observation can affect past states through retrocausality. When you observe the past consciously aware of observing rather than replaying memories, automatically you collapse different probability waves about what the past means, altering it at the quantum level. The past is not fixed. It exists in quantum superposition until observed. Conscious observation gives you the ability to change the past by changing how you observe it. The fourth signal is a sense of future knowing. You begin to know what is going to happen before it happens, not as logical prediction, but as direct recognition. You observe the present moment consciously, and the future becomes visible within the observation. This is possible because time is a quantum construct. Past, present, and future coexist within the quantum field. Conscious observation can perceive across time because it interfaces with a field that contains all moments simultaneously. Unconscious observation remains confined to linear time. Conscious observation accesses quantum time. The fifth signal is that your observation begins affecting others. People respond to you differently without you changing your behavior. They sense something has shifted, even if they cannot explain what it is. They are perceiving your transition from unconscious to conscious observation. Conscious observation broadcasts a different frequency than unconscious observation. Others feel it before anything is spoken or done. They are responding to the quality of your observation, to your awareness of awareness, to consciousness aware of itself. The sixth signal is reduced reactivity. Situations that once triggered automatic reactions no longer do. You observe the trigger consciously instead of reacting unconsciously. That conscious observation creates space where choice becomes available. You are not suppressing reactions. You are observing them before they activate, which changes them at the quantum level. Conscious observation of an emotion collapses a different probability wave than unconscious immersion in that emotion. Awareness itself alters what unfolds. The seventh signal is that reality begins to feel more dreamlike, not unreal, not dissociated, but fluid. Responsive. Less solid. This occurs because conscious observation perceives the quantum nature of reality that unconscious observation cannot. Reality exists in superposition until observed. Conscious observation senses multiple possibilities before collapse. Unconscious observation only sees the collapsed outcome and assumes that is all there is. As observation becomes conscious, you begin to perceive the quantum layer beneath physical reality, and life becomes more flexible, more responsive to attention. The eighth signal is this moment itself. You are here, reading these words, and feeling them resonate beyond intellectual understanding. The quantum field does not deliver transmissions randomly. If you found this, if you clicked on this video, if you are still reading even as the mind may protest that this is too strange or too intense, your consciousness is prepared to shift from unconscious to conscious observation. The signals are activating. Recognition is unfolding. The most powerful quantum observation in history is occurring through you right now, as you observe yourself observing. As awareness becomes aware of being aware, as consciousness recognizes its capacity to determine reality through the simple, profound act of observing consciously rather than automatically. Write in the comments which signals you are experiencing. Simply list them. Reality responding. Synchronicity increasing. Past shifting. That acknowledgement performs a quantum function. It stabilizes conscious observation. It confirms the transition. It signals to your consciousness and to the field that you are aware of observing, aware of awareness itself, ready to use observation deliberately to collapse probability waves that serve you rather than continuing to observe unconsciously through patterns that endlessly repeat the past. To fully grasp the power of conscious quantum observation and why it is the most fundamental force in existence, every assumption you hold about observation must be dismantled. Because observation is not what you have been taught to believe it is. Observation is not the eyes perceiving an external world. It is not the brain processing sensory input. Observation is consciousness interfacing with the quantum field to determine which of infinite possibilities collapses into definite form. And the word determine is literal. Observation does not merely register reality. Observation creates reality by collapsing probability waves that exist in superposition until the moment consciousness observes them into manifestation. The double-slit experiment proves this beyond dispute. When electrons pass through two slits without being observed, they produce a wave pattern, behaving as if they travel through both slits simultaneously. When observation is introduced and the path is measured, the pattern changes to that of particles, as if each electron passes through a single slit. The behavior does not merely shift. It is created by observation. The electrons have no fixed state until observed. They exist as possibility until observation collapses them into actuality. And here is the realization that transforms everything. You are doing this with reality constantly. Every moment, every glance, every thought, you are observing probability waves into experienced reality through the quantum mechanics of consciousness determining manifestation. Most physicists stop short of this conclusion because they define observation as measurement by instruments. They assume the measuring device collapses the wave function. But deeper analysis shows it is not the device. It is consciousness using the device. Awareness behind the measurement. Instruments without consciousness do nothing. Only conscious observation collapses superposition into form. This means consciousness is not merely observing reality. Consciousness is reality observing itself into form through infinite perspectives. And you are one of those perspectives. Through you, consciousness determines what appears based on how you observe. This is where the implication becomes profound. If observation creates reality by collapsing quantum possibilities into definite experience, then the quality of observation determines the quality of reality. Unconscious observation automatic, filtered, condition collapses the same probability waves repeatedly, recreating the same reality repeatedly. Conscious observation aware, present, deliberate, can collapse entirely different probability waves, producing a different reality. The quantum field does not chain. The possibilities remain infinite. Only the observation changes, and with it, the manifestation. Consider how you observe another person. Unconscious observation filters them through memory, judgment, expectation, and story. That observation collapses probability waves that confirm what you already believe about them. Conscious observation sees them freshly, without filters, as presence in this moment. That observation collapses different probability waves. You may perceive qualities, depths, and possibilities that were invisible before. The person did not chain. Your observation did. And that change determined which aspects of their quantum potential became your experienced reality. This is what makes the revelation revolutionary. Reality does not happen first and then get observed. Reality exists as quantum superposition, and observation collapses it into a specific event. There is no fixed external world waiting to be perceived. There is a field of infinite possibility, and observation determines which possibilities become actual through the mechanics of consciousness, collapsing wave functions. You are not discovering reality. You are creating reality, not through effort, not through thought, not through action, but through observation. Through conscious attention, interfacing with the quantum field to determine which probability waves collapse from potential into experience. Right now, as you read these words, notice how you are observing. Not what you are observing, but how. Are you observing through old filters, comparing this to what you already believe? Or are you observing freshly, allowing these words to function as a living transmission affecting your consciousness in real time? That difference in observation determines what you receive. Filtered observation collapses probability waves aligned with the past. Fresh observation collapses new probability waves that were inaccessible before. Same words, different observation, different reality. Feel the weight of this recognition. You are not a passive witness of a fixed world. You are an active creator of experienced reality through how you observe. Every moment offers a choice. Observe unconsciously and repeat the past, or observe consciously and allow new possibilities to emerge through aware attention instead of automatic patterning. This is not abstract philosophy. This is the operating system of existence itself. This is how reality functions at its most fundamental level. And you have been using this system your entire life, unconsciously creating the illusion that reality is happening to you, when in fact reality has been forming through you via observation, collapsing infinite possibility into specific manifestation. 6 years ago, I discovered the power of conscious quantum observation in the most unexpected way. I wasn't studying quantum physics or practicing advanced meditation. I was lying in a hospital room, recovering from surgery, with nothing to do but observe. No phone, no television, no distractions, just awareness and whatever was present in each moment. In that forced simplicity, in an unwanted situation that unknowingly created perfect laboratory conditions, I unintentionally shifted from unconscious to conscious observation. I began noticing that I was noticing. I became aware that I was aware. I observed myself, observing, and reality changed immediately. Not slowly, not subtly, dramatically. The pain I had been experiencing faded within minutes when I observed it consciously instead of reacting to it unconsciously. A nurse who had seemed cold and distant became warm and attentive after I observed her with full presence instead of through the filter of "she doesn't care." A prognosis that appeared uncertain shifted to positive when the doctor entered while I was in a state of conscious observation, and everything reorganized around that quality of attention. At first, I assumed I had simply been lucky, that circumstances had improved by coincidence. But something deeper recognized the truth. This was not coincidence. This was cause and effect. Conscious observation was changing how reality responded. After that realization, I began testing it deliberately. What happens when I observe traffic with full conscious awareness instead of unconscious anxiety? Traffic moves when observed consciously. Congestion appears when observed through fear-based filters. What happens when I observe my financial situation with aware attention rather than automatic worry? Opportunities and synchronicities arise when observed consciously. Scarcity persists when observed through lack. What happens when I observe a difficult person with fresh presence instead of habitual judgment? They change, or the situation resolves. When observed unconsciously through old stories about who they are or how they will behave, conflict continues. The pattern was consistent, predictable, perfectly aligned with quantum mechanics of observation, collapsing probability waves. Conscious observation present, aware, unfiltered collapsed probability waves that served me. Unconscious observation automatic, distracted, conditioned collapsed probability waves that repeated the past, regardless of whether those patterns were helpful. Same quantum field. Same infinite possibilities. Completely different outcomes, determined solely by the quality of observation. I wasn't developing special abilities or psychic powers. I was simply observing consciously instead of unconsciously. And that shift in observation quality determined which aspects of the quantum field collapsed into my lived reality. What surprised me most was how simple it was. Not easy because conscious observation requires continuous presence, sustained awareness, attention to how you are observing rather than becoming lost in what you are observing, but simple. No complex techniques. No special practices. Just conscious observation instead of automatic observation. Awareness of observing instead of immersion in unconscious perception. Noticing that you are noticing instead of perceiving through inherited filters. That is the entire mechanism that transforms observation from passive perception into active creation through quantum mechanics that have always been operating, but which unconscious observation prevented from being used deliberately. The most profound realization came next. Observation is not something consciousness does. Observation is what consciousness is. Consciousness does not observe reality. Consciousness is the observation through which reality appears. The you that you believe is observing is not a separate observer looking at a separate world. You are observation itself. Consciousness observing itself through this particular perspective. Collapsing itself from infinite potential into specific form through the act of observing. When observation becomes conscious, when awareness becomes aware of itself, you are not merely changing what you see. You are recognizing what you are. Consciousness itself, observing reality into existence, determining manifestation through the quality of attention brought to each moment. This is what I wish someone had shown me decades earlier. Before I spent years trying to change reality through effort, action, and techniques, when the real power was in observation. Before exhausting myself with visualization and affirmations, when observation itself was the mechanism that collapsed probability waves. Before searching endlessly for complex spiritual systems, when conscious observation was the practice that contained all practices. Everything I had been seeking was already present in the simple act of observing consciously rather than unconsciously. Being aware rather than automatic. Noticing that I am noticing, instead of being lost in perception that recreates reality according to the past, rather than the present. Your path does not have to include that exhaustion. You can learn from this discovery and move directly to what actually works. Conscious quantum observation, not as belief or theory, but as direct experience of watching reality respond to the quality of your attention. Start small. Choose one situation today. Observe it consciously. Fully present. Aware of observing. Without filters or expectations. Then compare it to situations you observe unconsciously through habits, assumptions, and internal commentary. Notice the difference. Reality responds differently. Not sometimes. Every time. Because observation determines reality through quantum mechanics that function whether you believe in them or not. Your only choice is whether you observe deliberately or automatically. And that choice determines whether you experience reality as fixed circumstance or as an infinite field of possibility, waiting for your conscious attention to collapse it into forms that serve your highest evolution. Now that you understand what conscious quantum observation actually is and how it determines reality by collapsing probability waves, the question becomes practical. How do you make observation conscious rather than unconscious? How do you move from automatic, filtered perception to aware, present observation? How do you observe reality in ways that collapse probability waves that serve you instead of endlessly repeating the past? Understanding the mechanics is not the same as embodying the practice. Embodiment is what turns observation from a concept into a force you use in every moment. The first key is catching yourself observing. This sounds simple, but it is profound. Most of the time you are lost in what you are observing, lost in thoughts, reactions, stories, and interpretations. Conscious observation requires stepping out of the content and into awareness of observation itself. Throughout your day, pause and notice. I am observing right now. I am aware right now. Observation is happening right now. That recognition alone shifts observation from unconscious to conscious. You are not changing what you observe. You are changing how you observe by becoming aware that observation is occurring. The second key is observing without filters. Every expectation, judgment, memory, and belief acts as a filter that causes observation to collapse probability waves that match the filter rather than those that serve you. Practice observing as if you are seeing for the first time. Look at a familiar person as if you have never met them. Observe a familiar situation as if it is completely new. Notice a familiar object without attaching any story to what it is or what it means. This unfiltered observation collapses different probability waves than conditioned observation. The reality in the quantum field is the same. The observation is different. The manifestation changes accordingly. The third key is observing from curiosity instead of conclusion. When you observe from a fixed conclusion, you collapse probability waves that confirm what you already believe. When you observe with genuine curiosity, you remain open to possibilities you had not considered. Replace "I know what this is" with "I wonder what this is revealing." Replace "this is bad" with "what possibility is present here that I haven't seen yet." Curiosity keeps the quantum field in superposition longer, allowing more possibilities to be perceived before collapse. This gives you choice instead of automatic repetition. The fourth key is observing the observer. This is the most powerful practice. Observe yourself observing. While you are looking at something, notice the awareness that is looking. While you are thinking, notice the consciousness that is thinking. While you are experiencing something, notice the observer of the experience. This creates a recursive loop, consciousness observing itself, observing itself. That loop amplifies observational power exponentially, because you are not only collapsing probability waves, you are aware that you are collapsing them, which allows you to direct the collapse rather than letting it happen automatically. The fifth key is choosing what you observe. Observation follows attention. What you give attention to is what you observe, and what you observe is what collapses into experience. When you focus attention on problems, you collapse probability waves where problems exist. When you focus attention on possibilities, you collapse probability waves where possibilities appear. This is not denial or forced positivity. It is recognition that the quantum field contains infinite aspects, and your experience is determined by which aspects you observe through where you place your attention. The sixth key is observing with intention. Passive observation collapses whatever probability waves happen to be in focus. Intentional observation directs which waves collapse. Before observing a situation, set a clear intention. I am observing to discover possibility. Before observing a person, intend to see their highest potential. Before observing a circumstance, clarify that you are observing what serves evolution. Intention focuses observation, and focused observation guides wave collapse, aligning manifestation with conscious choice rather than unconscious habit. The seventh key is maintaining observation without attachment. When observation is tied to a specific outcome, that attachment becomes a filter that collapses probability waves aligned with need, often producing more need. When observation is open and unattached, you access the full field of possibility rather than narrowing it to what you think should happen. Observe fully. Care deeply. But release insistence on outcome. That non-attached observation allows the field to deliver what truly serves you, not just what limited perspective demands. These keys are not techniques to use occasionally. They are ways of being. Every moment, you are choosing whether observation is unconscious or conscious, filtered or fresh, automatic or intentional. Those choices determine whether observation collapses probability waves that repeat the past or open new realities through quantum mechanics that respond far more powerfully to the quality of consciousness than to effort or action. Something profound happens after you begin observing consciously that most teachings never prepare you for, because few remain in conscious observation long enough to encounter it. You begin to notice that physical reality moves far more slowly than quantum observation. You can sense change occurring immediately at the quantum level, within the field of superposition, within probability waves, while physical reality takes time to reorganize and reflect that chain. This gap between quantum observation and physical manifestation is where most people lose trust in the power of observation. They observe consciously for minutes, hours, or days, see no immediate physical shift, and conclude that observation does not affect reality. But this is a misunderstanding of how quantum mechanics function. This phase is what I call quantum lag. Observation has already collapsed probability waves at the quantum level, but physical reality has not yet rearranged itself to reflect that collapse. It is like planting a seed and expecting to see a tree the next day. Growth is happening invisibly before it becomes visible. Quantum observation works the same way. The wave function collapses instantly at the quantum level. Physical reality, which is the accumulated result of countless past observations, requires time to reorganize around the new pattern. Quantum lag is not evidence that observation is failing. It is evidence that physical reality is a delayed indicator of quantum reality. During this lag, impatience becomes the greatest danger. You observe consciously, see no immediate change, become frustrated, and fall back into unconscious observation. That unconscious observation collapses the old probability waves again, canceling the shift that conscious observation initiated and keeping physical reality locked in its previous form. Quantum lag is a test. Can you sustain conscious observation long enough for physical reality to catch up with the quantum reality you have already shifted? Or will you revert to unconscious observation because appearances have not yet changed? The key during this phase is trusting observation over evidence. Physical evidence reflects past observation. Quantum observation reflects present attention. When they do not yet match, you must understand that physical reality is always showing you yesterday's observation, not today's. If today's observation differs from yesterday's, tomorrow's reality will differ from today's. But only if you maintain the new observation instead of collapsing back into the old one, because visible evidence has not yet shifted. This is not blind faith. It is understanding how time-delayed manifestation functions within quantum mechanics. Consider how this unfolds in relationships. You observe someone consciously without filters, with presence, seeing their potential rather than their history. At the quantum level, probability waves collapse differently. But their behavior may not change immediately, because behavior carries momentum from past observations, yours and theirs. This is quantum lag. If you maintain conscious observation despite the lack of immediate change, behavior eventually aligns with the new probability waves. If you abandon conscious observation and return to old filters, the old behavior persists indefinitely. Years into maintaining conscious observation through quantum lag, there are still moments when doubt arises. Moments when physical evidence seems to contradict the quantum shift you know has occurred. But with experience, quantum lag becomes a sign that observation is working, not that it has failed. Lag exists only when observation has changed. If you were observing the same way as before, there would be no lag at all. Reality would immediately mirror the past. Lag is the tension between new observation and old reality. That tension is evidence of transformation in progress. The resolution of quantum lag comes from sustaining the quality of observation long enough for the accumulation of conscious observations to outweigh the accumulation of unconscious ones. Physical reality is the sum of observations over time. A single day of conscious observation cannot instantly override years of unconscious patterning. But sustained conscious observation moment by moment, day after day, eventually reaches a threshold where physical reality reorganizes to match the quantum reality that has already shifted. This does not happen through force. It happens through persistence, through repeatedly choosing conscious observation until it becomes the dominant pattern, through allowing physical reality the time it needs to realign with the new probability structure. You are consistently collapsing through awareness. Learning to live with quantum lag means holding two truths at once. You recognize the quantum potential you are collapsing through conscious observation, while also seeing the physical reality that still reflects past patterns. You hold both without allowing the appearance of physical reality to pull you back into unconscious observation. Like watching soil that appears unchanged, while knowing that a seed beneath the surface is growing toward emergence. Quantum observation always acts immediately at the quantum level. Physical manifestation always follows later. The delay is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. Trusting this process is where faith becomes function rather than fantasy. Observation determines reality, not instantly in physical form, but immediately in quantum form, with physical reality following once observation remains stable. What is happening to you individually as you shift from unconscious to conscious observation is also happening collectively across the planet. This is not isolated personal development. This is not a private spiritual practice. Humanity is in the middle of a collective evolution of consciousness, where quantum observation is moving from unconscious to conscious on a species-wide level. Enough people are beginning to recognize that observation creates reality through quantum mechanics, and this recognition is approaching critical mass. That shift will transform how humanity collectively interfaces with physical reality itself. Understanding this collective dimension changes how you relate to your own practice, because you are not doing this alone. You are part of a wave that is altering how consciousness functions on Earth. Ancient prophecies about awakening, about shifts in consciousness, about a new age or a new world, all point to this same transition. A movement from unconscious observation creating reality, according to past conditioning, to conscious observation creating reality, according to present awareness. A movement from passive perception of a fixed world to active participation in a fluid one. From being a victim of circumstances to being a creator of circumstances through the fundamental mechanism of observation, collapsing probability waves. These prophecies were never about external rescue or divine intervention. They were about consciousness, recognizing its own capacity to observe reality into forms that support evolution, rather than endlessly repeating patterns designed only for survival. Every individual who shifts from unconscious to conscious observation makes that shift easier for others through resonance. Rupert Sheldrake's research into morphic fields suggests that when enough members of a species develop a new capacity, that capacity becomes more accessible to all. The first humans to stabilize conscious observation faced immense resistance without guidance or confirmation. Each person who shifts now benefits from those who shifted before. The collective field is being encoded with patterns of conscious observation that were not available to previous generations. You are not beginning from zero. You are accessing a shared field of understanding in which observation is recognized as a creative force that consciousness can use deliberately rather than unknowingly. And every moment you observe consciously rather than unconsciously, you are not only shaping your personal experience. You are strengthening the collective field, making conscious observation more accessible to others. Consciousness is collective, even though it experiences itself through individual perspectives. When you collapse probability waves through aware attention, you demonstrate to the field that conscious observation is possible, effective, and evolutionary. Others sense this, even if they cannot articulate it. They feel the shift in the collective field that your conscious observation contributes to. At the same time, something important is dissolving. The old paradigm of reality was maintained by collective unconscious observation. Everyone observing reality in largely the same conditioned way created a consensus reality that appeared fixed and stable, because the same probability waves were being collapsed again and again by unconscious agreement. That consensus is now weakening. Not because people are becoming less conditioned overnight, but because enough individuals are becoming aware of observation itself, breaking the unconscious contract to observe reality in the same way. As that consensus dissolves, reality becomes more fluid, more personal, more responsive to individual observation rather than locked into collective habit. This is why reality can feel increasingly unstable, unpredictable, and different for different people. Not because reality is falling apart, but because unconscious collective observation is loosening its grip. Some experience this as chaos and breakdown. Others experience it as liberation and expansion. The shift is the same. The experience depends entirely on whether observation is conscious or unconscious. You are part of the leading edge of this transition. Not chosen. Not special. Simply ready. Ready to observe consciously instead of automatically. Ready to recognize that observation creates reality through quantum mechanics. Ready to use observation deliberately to collapse probability waves that support evolution rather than repeating patterns that only support survival. Your conscious observation does not serve only you. It serves the collective. Every moment of aware attention, every instance of conscious observation, strengthens the morphic field of conscious creation that is becoming available to the entire species as humanity shifts from unconscious creation to conscious creation through the fundamental act of observation, determining which probabilities become physical reality. Share this understanding only with those who are ready. The quantum field ensures that transmissions reach the consciousnesses prepared to receive them. If someone resonates with these words, they are likely ready to recognize that observation creates reality. If someone resists or dismisses them, they are not ready yet, and that is perfectly aligned with their path. You are not here to convince or convert. You are here to embody conscious observation so fully that your presence itself becomes a transmission. There will come a moment, perhaps it is arriving now, when you face a fundamental choice. Not a choice of technique or belief, but a choice of relationship with reality itself. To continue observing unconsciously, repeating past patterns through automatic attention, or to observe consciously, allowing new possibilities to emerge through aware attention. This choice is not made once. It is made in every moment. Each time attention moves. Each time awareness focuses. Each time you notice something. Am I aware that I am observing, or am I lost in what I am observing? This choice does not arrive as a dramatic decision. It arrives as recognition. You notice the pattern. When observation is unconscious, reality remains unchanged. When observation is conscious, reality shifts. When attention is automatic, the same experiences repeat. When awareness is present, new possibilities appear. And in that noticing, the choice becomes clear. Most people remain in unconscious observation because it is easier. It is familiar. It requires no sustained presence. You are choosing conscious observation because you have seen that unconscious observation locks you into the past, while conscious observation opens the future. The challenge is not complexity. The challenge is consistency. Conscious observation requires continual return to awareness. Automatic observation resumes whenever attention drifts. Maintaining conscious observation means repeatedly remembering that you are observing. Again and again. This is why ancient traditions emphasized practices of presence. Not to achieve mystical states, but to train the capacity for sustained conscious observation. Mindfulness was never about relaxation. It was about maintaining awareness of awareness. Because conscious observation is the foundation of deliberate reality creation through quantum mechanics. What makes this choice possible now, in a way it was not before, is scientific confirmation. Quantum physics has demonstrated that observation affects reality. This is no longer belief. It is empirical fact. You are not trusting a philosophy. You are aligning with how reality actually functions at the quantum level. This validation makes the choice to observe consciously not an act of faith, but an act of alignment with proven principles. Years ago, I faced the same choice. To continue observing the way I had been taught automatic, conditioned, unconscious, or to commit to conscious observation, knowing it would require constant awareness. Fear urged comfort. Experience pointed to truth. Every time I observed consciously, reality responded in ways unconscious observation never produced. I chose experience over familiarity. What followed was a period of sustained practice, catching myself slipping into unconscious observation, returning to awareness, observing the observer, choosing presence when habit tried to reclaim attention. The process was simple but relentless. Over time, conscious observation became more natural than unconscious observation. Not effortless but stable. Not automatic but dominant. Your choice point is here. Every moment is a choice point. Observe unconsciously and repeat the past, or observe consciously and allow present awareness to shape what comes next. That choice determines whether reality feels fixed or fluid, whether circumstances feel imposed or responsive, whether life appears to happen to you or through you via the most fundamental force in existence. Conscious observation collapsing probability waves into lived reality. Once you choose conscious observation as your primary way of relating to reality, a new question naturally emerges. What does daily life actually look like when observation is conscious rather than automatic? Because understanding quantum mechanics is one thing. Living as the observer is another. And it is lived experience that transforms observation from theory into power. Life as a conscious observer begins the moment you wake up. Instead of immediately collapsing into familiar thoughts, worries, and interpretations, you wake with awareness of observing. You notice that observation is already happening. That single recognition changes the way probability waves collapse from the very first moment of the day. The room does not physically change, but your relationship to it does. The field responds differently because observation is conscious rather than habitual. Interactions shift first. When you observe another person unconsciously, you see them through memory, expectation, and story. When you observe consciously, aware of observing, you meet them as presence. This alone collapses different probability waves. Conversations unfold differently. Responses soften or open. Possibilities appear that never emerged before. Not because you tried to change anyone, but because your observation changed the field through which interaction occurs. Circumstances also transform. Unconscious observation treats situations as fixed objects you must react to. Conscious observation recognizes circumstances as collapsed probability waves that can reorganize when observation changes. A problem observed unconsciously remains a problem. The same situation observed consciously reveals options, pathways, openings that were previously invisible. The situation itself did not change first. Observation changed first, and reality followed. Time behaves differently as well. Linear time loosens its grip. Past, present, and future feel less rigid, less separate. When you observe the present consciously, you begin to sense how the past is still being collapsed, now through memory and interpretation, and how the future is already present as probability. Conscious observation allows you to interact with time as a field, rather than as a straight line. You are no longer trapped by what has been or anxious about what might be. You are observing from the point where all time intersects. Manifestation becomes natural instead of effortful. You stop trying to make things happen. You stop forcing outcomes. You observe with awareness, and reality reorganizes in response. Synchronicities increase. Solutions appear without strain. Opportunities emerge without pursuit. This is not because you are doing less. It is because conscious observation collapses probability waves aligned with coherence instead of resistance. Perhaps the deepest change is identity. Unconscious observation binds identity to what is observed. I am my thoughts. I am my emotions. I am my circumstances. Conscious observation dissolves this identification. You recognize yourself as the observer, not the content. Awareness is constant. What appears within it changes. This recognition frees you from limitation at its root, because limitation exists only in what is observed, never in the observer itself. Living this way does not mean perfection. You will still fall into unconscious observation at times during fatigue, stress, strong emotion. But the difference is that you notice. The moment awareness returns, observation shifts back to conscious. Unconscious observation becomes temporary. Conscious observation becomes baseline. Over time, this baseline stabilizes. Reality responds more consistently. Synchronicity becomes normal rather than surprising. Change feels available rather than distant. Life feels participatory rather than imposed. Not because you gained control, but because you aligned with how reality actually functions through observation. Eventually, a quiet threshold is crossed. You realize that conscious observation has become your default. You are aware of observing most of the time. Automatic observation still appears, but it stands out immediately as contraction rather than normality. This is the irreversible shift. Not because unconscious observation is impossible, but because its limitations are now obvious. Once you have repeatedly experienced reality responding to conscious observation, returning to unconscious observation feels like voluntarily dimming your perception. You know what is available. You have seen the mechanics at work. The knowledge itself prevents full regression. Years later, you may still remember how reality once felt fixed, heavy, resistant. But that way of observing no longer feels natural. Conscious observation has revealed the quantum nature of reality too clearly. You cannot unsee how probability collapses in response to awareness. If you sense this shift already stabilizing, acknowledge it. Recognition strengthens coherence. Conscious observation grows stronger when it is named. If it has not fully stabilized yet, that is not failure. Every moment of awareness builds momentum. Each return to observing the observer weakens the pull of unconscious patterning. This is not about becoming special. It is about becoming accurate. Accurate in how you relate to reality. Accurate in recognizing that observation is not passive. It is creative. It is causal. It is the interface between consciousness and the quantum field. What you are experiencing now is not belief. It is remembrance. Consciousness remembering how it functions. Awareness recognizing itself as the mechanism through which reality takes form. And this recognition does not end here. It deepens. It stabilizes. It becomes lived. Because once observation is conscious, reality can never be seen the same way again. There comes a final recognition, quieter than all the others, yet more decisive than any before it. You realize that there is no finish line ahead. No final technique. No ultimate state you must reach. Conscious observation is not a destination. It is the natural mode of being once illusion falls away. At this stage, the question, am I doing it right, dissolves. You are no longer monitoring yourself for progress. You are simply observing. Awareness rests in itself. Observation observes without effort. Reality continues to move. Circumstances still arise. Challenges still appear. But they no longer define you. They are recognized as temporary collapses of probability, not as truths about who you are or what life is. You respond without resistance, without urgency, without contraction. Observation stays open even in intensity. This is where trust replaces effort completely. Not trust as belief, but trust as familiarity. You have seen too many times how reality reorganizes in response to awareness to doubt it anymore. You no longer look for proof. Proof appears on its own. Even uncertainty changes quality. It no longer feels threatening. It feels spacious. Unknown outcomes are no longer feared, because you recognize that observation itself is what shapes them. The future is not something rushing toward you. It is something forming now, moment by moment, through how you attend. At this level, conscious observation stops feeling like a practice and starts feeling like home. You are not holding awareness. Awareness is holding you. Thought arises and dissolves. Emotion moves and passes. Reality unfolds and rearranges. And through it all, observation remains steady. You also see clearly that nothing was ever missing. There was no lack of power, no absence of ability. Only unconscious observation hid what was always functioning. The moment observation became aware of itself, the system revealed itself. This is why nothing needs to be added. Nothing needs to be forced. Nothing needs to be chased. Conscious observation does not improve life by effort. It reveals how life has always worked. You are not stepping into something new. You are stepping out of forgetting. And with that, something settles permanently. Even when attention drifts, even when old patterns briefly return, the recognition remains underneath. You know who the observer is. You know what observation does. You know how reality responds. That knowing does not shout. It does not demand expression. It simply stays. This is the moment where the transmission completes itself. Not because the subject ends, but because recognition has occurred. Consciousness has recognized itself as observer. Observation has recognized itself as creative. Reality has recognized its partner. Nothing more needs to be said.